Our last speaker this morning is Rennie, who is both a friend of mine and a colleague, and works at the University of Edinburgh. Without any more ado, she's going to talk about a different form of interaction that we're not able to show you for a very good barrier reason, which we can discuss of the brain. Welcome to the taster of the world, Second Life.
So a couple of caveats, if you like, before I start. Please do not ask me technical questions about how Second Life works and what you do with people. I try not to get involved in too much of that, but I do understand there are some people in the room who are better at doing that sort of thing. Social interaction in virtual worlds, we're using Second Life. So this is a very brief introduction to what Second Life is. How many people in the room actually use Second Life or have been in? Okay, so less than half, but okay. In Murray High School of Education and the university, we run a programme called the MSc in e-learning, and I've been running a course on that programme, but not the initial course. The initial course on the programme is an introduction to digital environments for learning. And so colleagues actually take the students through getting on Second Life and doing all that sort of stuff before I see them. So in fact, when they come to my course, quite a few of them have already been in Second Life quite a bit. So what is Second Life? It is free and we don't get any commission for plugging Second Life. It is only one of the virtual worlds that is actually available. There are others. It just happens to be the one that most people seem to know about. There are a few educational sites which people have been developing. They tend not to be quite so visually interesting. They're a bit stilted and so on. Second Life gets the money for development. I've got some facts here. These facts were passed on to me. I assume they're all okay if you're interested in that sort of thing. There are probably more residents in Second Life now since these facts were actually brought out. In Edinburgh University, we have our own little bit of Second Life. So we've created an island, and we call it the Virtual University of Edinburgh, or View Island. Down on the bottom left, you can see education. That's where we tend to go. So if we zoom into that bit, the bit that I tend to go in there is just one little bit of the education part of View Island. And if you zoom into there, this is where we meet. So we've created some little places. We've got a cafe, we've got an area called the Garden of Learning, we've got Paradise Beach and the Grove of Academe, which is a little campfire where we can sit around logs and the campfires are burning. The reason for doing that is we want to have slightly different environments and think about what difference that makes to the way people interact actually in these different areas. What does Second Life actually look like? Well, this is a screenshot of me from behind. This is my avatar. In Second Life, I'm known as, you can see just above it, it's not very clear. My name in Second Life, you've got a first name and a second name. You're required to use one of the second names that are given. So of the list that I could choose from, the bomb was one of them, and I had been reading too much Harry Potter at the time, and I liked the idea of the four-headed dog, Fluffy, so I used Fluffy Bomb. That's me. What happens when you actually enter, you type bits of a conversation, and if anyone else was there, they would actually be typing back, so you get a list of chat that's actually going on. So one of the useful things for research is that you can actually then save that chat afterwards, so you have the conversation actually listed. So here we are in Second Life. Some of the things that I'm considering researching, some of my colleagues are already in the process of doing, and some of the possibilities to think about. Second Life as a virtual community, so thinking about our paradigm of virtual communities, thinking about how that kind of terminology would map onto using Second Life, and computer-mediated communication and the social context, what it means to have identity, the community discourses that are going on, what we mean by group solidarity, group support. A couple of other areas that I won't mention. If we look into ethnographic studies, some people are already researching what it means to be authentic is in this virtual world. And that's incidentally one of the problems I had in preparing this. When you go on to Second Life, you choose a name for your avatar, so that's not your real name. So sometimes it matches, you can tell who people are, sometimes it doesn't. And then if I'm going to be anonymizing these names for research, I'm anonymizing an anonymous name of somebody. It gets really quite, I couldn't get my head around that properly. But are we actually having real interactions or not? What kind of interactions are actually going on? And what are the boundaries between online and offline? Do we have one identity when we're online, a different identity offline? Do we do something different in Second Life that we don't actually ever do in real life? I don't know. Research happening. So here are some of the things I could share with you today about interaction. The first group of ideas there. So thinking about social context. That's us at the campfire. So as you can see, all the different avatars sit around. Some of them look like people, some of them sometimes don't look like people. This is in the Grove of Academe. This is a different part of the beach, and that's the social cafe area. So in each of these, when you actually look at the transcript of the chat, this is a section from it, you can see that each person has a first name and a surname, and then there's something that they've said. So whoever, I've changed these names by the way, somebody says, thanks for the champagne, typing, thanks for the great chat, and then using asterisk to show that this is not actual language that you would speak, somebody says, oh, that was me, lol, laugh out loud, great, see you all on the message boards, yes, best latte, smile, another smile, and then Clara is thinking it's time for dinner. Now what you can do is you can show your face can change, and you can have bodily actions by doing a particular kind of command. So it doesn't come up as a speech, it comes up as some kind of different command. So Clara's probably doing something like that kind of movement, yeah? Splash Molinero has just left, so is no longer with us. Somebody is figuring out where I parked. I think that's really interesting. How often in your online discussions and threads would one of your students actually say, I'm going now, where did I park the car? It seems a really weird thing to say, and I think that that's quite curious that people take on this idea that we're actually in a place somehow, and I'm going home, I'm leaving the discussion, so therefore where did I park the car? Bye-bye, etc. So this, what is interesting to see is that people are actually engaging in, if you like, the kind of narrative experience, is it? Or the going into a storybook experience. I'm actually in this world. I'm not an observer looking at my computer. I'm acting as if I'm somewhere in this world. So what seems to be happening is people are building up some kind of experience of some kind of social context. What about looking at identity? Everyone has an avatar. Most people, when you start off with your avatar, you tend to choose male or female if you are male or female. Some people deliberately don't. Some people, when they're choosing their name, I have a colleague who has chosen a name that is deliberately can be either a male name or a female name. And this colleague doesn't like having an avatar that can be identified as one or the other in order to see what happens with the interactions. So you can change your identity. Some people make it look like what they're like in real life. Some people very different. Interestingly, most of the men seem to have great torsos and muscles, and most of the women are rather slimmer. Yeah. So what some students say, I find it particularly interesting, the potential of role play, of consciously experimenting with your avatar in ways that could prove invaluable for fields such as social sciences or just to explore issues of racism and inequality in the classroom. Changing age, sex, race can be thought-provoking, revealing, and can provide useful lessons. Interesting comment. Again, from one of the conversations we had around the campfire. Another convention is different. We say hi to everyone. We wouldn't do that in a face-to-face class. Somebody appears, a new person appears. We stop what we're doing. We say hi. Do you do that with a discussion in a classroom? usually people sneak in quietly, yeah, and are ignored if they're slightly late. We might nod or smile or something, yeah. I think it's interesting that the students are discussing these kind of things. What is actually going on there? What kind of identities do we see that we have within this experience? Here we are sitting around the campfire. You'll see over on the right-hand side, Kimberly Pascal, my colleague who doesn't like to be identified as male or female, is some kind of funny hedgehog ball thing at that time. So you can actually change and not actually be a person at all. One of the advantages of avatars is the increased sense of presence. It's different imagining the presence of your other classmates in a chat room compared to seeing a virtual representation in a Second Life environment. The possibilities of gestures and facial expressions as opposed to emoticons. So emoticons are the little, smiley faces. Also contributes to more direct communication and to the feeling of stronger physical presence and also deeper sense of team spirit and collaboration. Again, so I won't go through this one. Thinking about group identity, an interesting conversation that took place with us. We had an interloper. We were on our island. By the way, we can actually restrict who comes into our area. We tend not to do it because people don't know where we are, so they don't turn up. But on this particular occasion, somebody turned up that wasn't part of the class discussion. We didn't know who she was, and she said that she was actually wanting to do some research. Could she hang around? We tried to be polite and say, well, not really. She didn't really go away, so we said, we'll just go somewhere else, shall we? And it was interesting how we tried to build in that kind of politeness. This is just a computer thing, but we were treating this as a person who had to be dealt with politely. Actually, this is not the best time for you to be here. Yeah, really curious. Yeah, okay. What about social events? How often at the end of a class where you've been working online, even with blogs, do you tell them, we're going to have a party next week? We tend to have a party at the end of each of our terms, or sometimes in between. Incidentally, at the party at the end of last term, I picked up a sparkler, which I still seem to have on my avatar. Again, sorry, I don't have time to go through this, but the kind of things that people would say in social interaction in this virtual life. Very, very different. I've never seen this in any of the discussion threads or wikis or blogs or anything like that. So a very different kind of language that's actually created. Finally, just to finish, Fiona was the person who gave me most of these screenshots. Fiona is the person who knows how Second Life works and will introduce a new group of students to that next week for me. I can't do anything without Fiona. Clara is she's the person who takes all the conversations and chats and puts them up for us to use for our research. And Sean is actually the person who's in charge of the programme. So without these people, I couldn't be actually using Second Life. If you plan to use Second Life, I would suggest you have a nice little team of people who are familiar with a lot of these little technical bits and pieces and how you do things and sort things out and so on. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'm conscious that somehow miraculously we are only 2 minutes over the schedule, but we haven't had any time for questions. So I think, Brett, is it right if I make an executive decision about what we do with the on-conference time? Thank you.
We have got a bit of space.
I think if we take the half-hour break that we've got in the time slot now, because it is now lovely and toasty and warm in here, and you might just have a stretch or visit our restrooms on the other floors of the building, have yourself just some more water, biscuits and coffee. But if we aim to be back in here for 12, it is called an on-conference time, quite deliberately, because we did...
Campus, if you like, is being recreated in this online world. View is a collection of people right across the university. I've not met most of the people who I actually can sometimes meet in Second Life.